Neptune's cool. Space is cool. It's not real. I wish it was real. All right, Casual Geographic. This guy's so dope. I love this dude and his videos because he's funny. He's a punny little guy. A punny little fella, if you will. Hopefully.
Giant ginger tree hippies don't always choose peace, but in 2014, one shocked scientist when she not only orchestrated the life canceling of another, she essentially hired a hitman to do it. The hairy honey trap was executed by a young female named Condor, and the victim was a mother 20 years older
fuck
named
art
Sedona,
school when you're
living in the
mentally
swamp
ill. That's
forests
all
of
you need,
Indonesia's
dude. Amen
Malas
to that.
Reserve. The two had
Cheers.
beef going back all the way to 2009, with Condor curiously approaching Sedoni's at the time 7-year-old daughter, and Sedoni defensively smacking and biting Condor before chasing her off. The perceived insolence stuck
really
with Condor,
nice.
and the disrespect was tattooed into her psyche. She was not letting that slide. Years later, Condor would catch the eye of a male named Echo, and the two would eventually run into Sedoni. They both approached, and Echo seemed to inspect Sedoni, who was now jockeyed by her 4-year-old son. Echo seemed curious in the mother, before losing interest and proceeding to mate with
Called Condor and can't even fly. Yo, we're throwing shade.
When Sedoni tried
Hi,
exiting the
Shadow Wolf.
situation, Condor escalated, ending the lovemaking and savagely beating Sedoni. But what blew researchers away was Echo going from bystander to participant. For 33 minutes, the two took turns beating on Sedoni, sometimes together, sometimes just Condor, with Echo blocking off any escape routes. It was an honest to ape jumping, and his much larger canines meant Echo inflicted the bulk of the damage. The pair didn't stop until a fourth orang, a male named Guapo, chased Echo off and ran defense for Sedoni. Before mating with
Guapo's
her,
fucking
the Orange
cute. Oh,
Knight would
shit.
be too late, as a little over 2 weeks later, Sedoni became past tense due to her injuries, and scientists were left wondering what
Damn.
they had just witnessed. In over 26,000 hours of observation, only 6 female on female attacks were recorded, and none caused serious injuries. Yet here was a spiteful orang leveraging her carnal currency, specifically to erase one of her rivals, and Echo acting as a hired gun. Premeditated and personal, it was a shockingly dark look into the intelligence of the forest man. One that begs the question, just how smart are they, and
Still
just what
negging
could they
me?
be capable of?
Bro, that's
To
so
say
embarrassing.
orangutans are intelligent
You
is
wanna try
honestly
again?
disrespectful, because this tree-happy ginger ape is damn near human. That is an animal that can 100% speak. They just really don't want to deal with taxes. And
No.
that's only partially a joke. Their name, Orangoutangs, literally translates to man of the forest, because locals swore they were plus-size people that chose not to speak because they know then they'd have to get jobs.
So
In
real,
2014, a court
dude.
in Argentina actually granted
How many
human rights
intelligent animals out there are like, fuck that. If they know we can talk and they know we're intelligent, they're gonna make us work. Dude, I believe
Sandra
it.
the orangutan after 20 years of captivity. There's a cute saying that goes, if you give a chip a screwdriver, it'll use it as a weapon. A gorilla would
Oh, yeah,
accidentally
Jane
break it. A
Goodall.
bonobo would become the screwdriver, but an
That
orangutan,
is really
he'd hide
sad.
it, use it to dismantle his cage and then let all his friends out. There's a bunch of reasons for this brainy Bigfoot, and one of them is them being the biggest mama's boys on Earth. No other mammal spends more time with its mother, except humans. In the up to and often over 10 years of being her shadow, baby orangs learned everything about how to orangutan. Not only that, but daughters often live around their moms even after having their own baby. This means orangutans are one of the few animals that have a legitimate culture, and what we see is a sum of generational wisdom passed down.
That's cool.
In 2022, a notorious Sumatran male named Raucus was seen using a medicinal plant to help heal a face wound he'd gotten in a fight. The 30-something-year-old applied the chewed-up paste of the Orangoutangs, an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial flowering plant traditionally used to treat malaria and diabetes. Raucus applied the paste for 7 minutes until it covered his wound, and 5 days later, it was completely healed. It's not the first time we've seen animals self-medicate.
Kabuki,
Bears
exactly.
will eat clay to detox from all the leaves, and elephants will apparently eat certain plants to induce labor. But what made Raucus so radical is the simple fact that they rarely eat that plant to begin with. There's more evidence of orangs self-medicating with the same plants used by locals, and it's likely this knowledge was taught.
That's so cool.
And not by humans. Mothers will even teach their young to have the same preferences for food, so that when they get older, they can forage in the same area without directly competing
Yeah,
with all the other
smart.
mother-child
Smarter than us
pairs.
even.
Another thing this citrus simian is smart enough to understand
ice
is
cream.
calculated reciprocity.
Citrus simian?
In this viral video, you see this man Vitaly trade snacks with a zoo orangutan. Not only did the hairy haggler refuse until he understood that he'd be getting something back, I swear you can see him check for zookeepers. If it sounds like a stretch, it's scientifically proven this untaxable entity understands the concept. 2 orangutans at the Leipzig Zoo in Germany were given 3 different tokens.
Hi,
They quickly
Revan.
learned
How
that
you
they
doing,
could
dude?
exchange one type for bananas for themselves. The second token type would earn bananas for the other orang, and the third type had no monetary value whatsoever. At first, the female, Dok, had no problem exchanging tokens to get the male, Bim, bananas. But Dok realized Bim wasn't really returning the favor, so she became a lot less generous. That gave Bim enough of an attitude adjustment to start trading his tokens more, until their efforts became closer to equal. There's another story of a orangutan taught to exchange any trash he found in his enclosure for a food reward. Except he then realized if he just returned the trash in pieces, that would just mean more food for him, which was unfortunate when the trash was someone's phone, and tragic when it turned out to be a formerly alive possum. But what exactly is it that makes orangutans so smart? Well, the superpower is how they learn. When orangutans are spending all that time with their mothers, they learn everything they need to by watching and copying. Even after they leave, young males will find an older, phalangeed male to use as a role model, learning how to be an alpha male by mimicking everything he does. Mimicry is how they learn, and that learning creates cultures.
The phalanges are so
It's scientifically
interesting.
proven when resources are good, orangs spend more time around each other and more time peering, watching, observing the other orangs. It's not just people watching, it's gathering intel, and they don't just do it to each other. Orangs regularly learn things just by watching the humans around them. This male was seen attempting
If he
to
builds
catch
shit,
fish
he's paying
after clocking
taxes, bro.
locals doing it. And one female, Supina, tried starting a fire by dipping a glowing stick in kerosene, blowing on it, and even rubbing it with another stick. But this shadow clone jutsu can be wildly inconvenient. Camp Miki is an orangutan research and rehabilitation reserve, where the Auburn apes have plenty of opportunities to study humans
awesome,
right back,
dude.
leading to the trend of orangutans untying canoes from the dock and stealing them, and not even triple or quadruple knots can discourage them. Fun fact, it takes about a 7-hour canoe ride to get to camp, so one documentary crew decided to save time with a speedboat. They lost that time after a redman stole the boat and left them stranded. The power of perception has taught orangs how to breastfeed, drive, and even saw wood, all from watching a human. It's said orangs have the intelligence of a 4-year-old, but I've yet to see a toddler that did its own laundry. Now you're seeing what I'm saying. They're smart enough to talk, wise enough not to, and she's only talking like that so we don't catch on. But what if I told you there's an even higher level of intelligence?
Yeah, no, you're so right, man.
Deception. Deception requires foresight and anticipating the actions or thoughts of another party. That's where intelligence can get scary. If orangutans have the capacity to trick us, we're talking about a whole different ballgame. Which brings us to the story of Fu Manchu. Now we're talking about an orangutan outsmarting humans, and it happened in the 60s in Omaha Zoo in Nebraska.
I bet it happens
I
more.
know, nothing ever happens in Nebraska. One day, zoo director Jerry Stone was doing his rounds when a couple keepers ran up to him. Panicking, they told him not one, but 5 orangs had escaped and were roaming the zoo. This was not good. Like all apes, an orang outside is a code red situation.
What are you,
And the starting
fucking
lineup of
Zill?
them walking amongst people was a
Brown, you don't want to be categorized in the same category as Zill, okay?
Too curious for it to be a bad
Bro,
time for everyone, and Jerry
not a good luck.
sprinted to them before anything could happen, and he found them just chilling. Yeah, Jerry was greeted by 5 fugitives just people watching in the elm trees by the elephant building. Clearly all they wanted to do was visit the zoo like everyone else. But you can't just have several hundred pounds of primate in public unsupervised, so Jerry literally went up the tree, grabbed an orang by the hand, and led them all back to the exhibit with no resistance. Jerry was less gentle with his staff, and let it be known that another mistake like that and someone would get pink slipped straight into unemployment. Clearly Stone made his point, because nothing like that would ever happen again. Until next week, when it happened again. Yup, somehow, some way, orangutan gang got out again. No one got hurt, they actually went to the exact same spot in the trees. But a troop of tangerine men exercising free will is a nightmare for zoo PR, and this time, Jerry was ready to give someone permanent PTO, cause no shot someone went through all that school in debt just to not close a furnace door. So imagine what went through Jerry's mind when the tans got out again. But this time, there was a catch. I used to think you'd only hear this line in a movie, but nah, someone actually ran up to Jerry and said, "You gotta come see this." And he wasn't wrong. You see, in the orangutan exhibit, there was a moat, and down at the bottom of that moat was a furnace door. And sure enough, they caught one of the males, Fu Manchu, fiddling with the door. They were watching from a distance so Fu wouldn't see them, but they couldn't see exactly what Fu was doing. All they knew was suddenly the door flew open and Usain Bolt felt a disturbance as these men broke the sound barrier running down to stop them. So now the solution was simple: clear the enclosure of anything that could be used to escape and do it daily. And sure enough, the orang breakouts came to an end.
Dude, you
For
fucking...
about a week until it
Y'all
happened
lucky
again.
I'm not
Jerry
as
wasn't
powerful
even mad,
or as
just
intelligent
tired.
as a
Remember, he
fucking
was a zoo director,
orange
and these
man,
Mandarin
okay?
menaces were
You guys just
monopolizing
lose
his
all your
life. And
arms.
it was
I'd rip
while
them all
perp-walking
off.
Fu Manchu,
All
who
your
just had to have
arms.
the biggest eating grin. Jerry noticed a glimmer out the corner of his mouth. He pulls it out, and it all becomes clear. Out was a 4-inch piece of wire bent like a horseshoe that Fu Manchu had stashed between his lower lip and gum.
All
The
two
very
of
hairy
them.
Houdini had been using it as a lockpick for weeks and hiding it in his oral wallet. No one taught Fu. Not only did he orchestrate his own emancipation, he had the foresight to realize he couldn't have the key out around keepers or else it'd get confiscated. Fu Manchu would be named an honorary member of the Locksmith Union of the United States, and Jerry Stone would go on to work with several other interesting apes, including a gorilla named
Exactly,
Harambe.
Matthew. Thank you.
Fu Manchu wouldn't be the last, or arguably the most creative. 27-year-old Carta used a stick to short-circuit an electric wire, and then used a bunch of sticks as a ladder to climb out her enclosure. She then just sat and enjoyed the view for 30 minutes until her keepers pulled up with tranquilizers, at which point she just went back in. Last year, Kimbali broke out of an $11 million habitat in Toronto by cartwheeling past a wire barrier. Mind you, that habitat opened up the summer before. Bro flexed on them 11 million ways. The important thing is, in none of these cases do you see an orang get out with malicious intent. Most times it just cosplays
Really?
people. But what if one did
I'd like
have
to see
beef
that,
and use his powers for
Kabuki.
malfeasance? This is Ken Allen. It's the most famous name in orangutan lore, and you wouldn't even know the name if his mother Maggie had succeeded in smothering him before he even got it. He'd be named after the two zoo officials that would raise him instead, Ken Willingham and Ben Allen. As a baby, he'd soft launch his shenanigans by regularly unscrewing the bolts of
Yes,
his crib
Gilby,
and
how are
dismantling
you
it.
doing,
And once he got too big
Gilbs?
for a crib, keeper Joanne Thomas would take him around the
The
zoo
teeth
in a
are
stroller,
scary.
a decision that arguably cost the zoo thousands. 5 days after moving into his new enclosure, June 13,
That makes
1985,
sense.
Ken climbed a wall and got out. Years before, folks caught Ken building a DIY ladder out of
It
some
reminds me
branches.
too,
One-
like the way that they are, like they're clearly showing that they can escape when they want, like in certain situations. But octopus have done that too, where they're like, they will eventually be like, yeah, so I could have escaped this whole time. I just like chose to stay, and like they'll leave. An octopus in an enclosure will like leave the enclosure while the facility shut down or something for the night, go fuck around, maybe eat some fish, and then head back to its aquarium after. Like, dude,
thing I didn't mention is living in the trees full time.
give him
means
some
orangutans
mushrooms.
literally make their beds
Oh boy,
every single night.
that's
Up to
scary.
20,000 in a
Intelligent
life. Clearly, the
apes.
craftsmanship carries on. Ken Allen spent his freedom wandering the zoo, taking pictures with patrons, before getting escorted back. Not a great thing to happen, but no one got hurt, the wall he scaled got extended, and surely this wouldn't happen again. July 29th of that year, Ken found a way out again. But this time, his intentions weren't pure. You see, there was another orang, Otis. Ken did not like Otis. Ken hated Otis. He hated him so much that they actually had to be separated because orangs might be an endangered species, but as long as they are roommates, Otis was an endangered individual. So when Ken escaped the second time, he went straight for Otis's corner and chucked rocks at him. That premeditated stoning put him in solitary confinement, but I'm sure Ken will tell you it was worth it. But the reason for the beef might have been jealousy. Otis was the breeding star of San Diego, with nearly 10 kids and 3 wives.
Yeah, that would do it,
Ken
dude. What
hated
the
him as a
hell?
concept, so the zoo gave him 4. And of course that backfired, when Ken started teaching them how to disrespect infrastructure too. One day, someone left a crowbar in the enclosure, and instead of using
Why?
it while everyone watched, he just tossed it aside, like he didn't even care. An actual orang move, except he threw it to a female named Vicky, and she used it to pry open a window
yeah, I'm
and
the
freed them
zoo's
both.
breeding
Also,
star.
Otis wasn't the only victim. Apparently, he
So-
took offense to a TV crew
Show
filming a
some respect.
documentary on gorillas and pelted them with rocks, until he ran out of rocks and started using cannonballs from his colon. Ken was so crafty, employees would only have a chance of studying him if they dressed like regular guests, cause Ken would never incriminate himself if someone in uniform was around.
That's so
Ken would break
fucking
out a few more
funny.
times, never hurting anyone, except Otis. He did once approach a child and mumble, "No one will ever believe you," before walking away. If you doubt that, your disbelief makes his legacy stronger. His legacy was he cost the zoo over $40,000.
I would
in zoo
believe a child if that-
enhancements,
if a
undercover
child's like,
surveillance,
dude,
electric
that
wiring,
orangutan just
and
said
even
no
hired
one will
rock
ever
climbers to
believe
find
me.
every possible finger, foot, and
We need to
toe.
go.
But he likely
I'm
made that
scared.
back and more, with all the PR Ken Allen brought to the zoo, just by being himself. But except for Otis, who, let's be real, must have done something to deserve it, Ken Allen never used his intellect to inflict violence. Bro just wanted a vibe. But what could an orang with a human grudge do? There's a story of an orangutan actor hating his trainer and waiting until the two were alone up in a tree, where Pierre strangled his human op and threw him to the ground. But the only proof is the obscure article I couldn't find a source for. Plus, Pierre was probably in the right. Now Joe's revenge? was more than just a story. Joe was an orangutan that
Pierre
appeared in
definitely had
over
it coming.
100 movies by 1919. This was a time where there were no laws against capturing, selling, and even killing wild orangutans. Universal Studios would take full advantage, and as cute as he was as a toddler, things changed once he became a teen. There would be several incidents with Joe, including a lawsuit where a security guard claimed Joe had mauled him with over 40 bites. There was another time he escaped, and when police pulled up to catch him, Joe stole an officer's gun. But the most infamous case
dreads,
was Joe breaking out of
right?
the Universal Zoo, serving straight chaos for 3 days, and even releasing 15 wolves and his elephant friend Charlie on the way out. But Joe did seem to have a
That's
code.
awesome,
Not only did he
freakish,
never
thank
attack
you.
women or children, he'd often defend them. One scene had an actor pretend to spank a child, but because Joe don't play pretend with the little ones, the
Jojo
went O-line and leveled the guy. Another scene had
I'm not actually tearing
Joe
up,
was
shut up.
retired from show business after being deemed too dangerous to work with. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, it's Team Joe over here. But there's an even darker side to orangutans, so dark that I'ma just drop this. Here's an ad while you consider your options. Birute Galdeques is a primatologist and one of the leading experts on orangutans.
I'm scared.
And in the 70s, she arrived at Camp Liki in Tanjung Putin National Park, where she was immediately warned by native Indonesians that some
you cry,
male
Mojo,
orangutans can
Jojo,
find humans attractive and occasionally physically
Mojo,
and
Jojo.
forcefully act on it. She didn't believe it until a male walked into camp one day and violated a female cook, and even multiple people trying to wrestle him off couldn't stop the salacious onslaught. It's now advised that menstruating women either avoid orangs or walk around with a club. So as you can see, orangutans are capable of anything from petty theft and zoo escapes all the way to premeditated census layoffs. But honestly, they could and should be way worse. An orangutan has never been on record murking a man, and some have had very good reasons. Joe Martin had every good reason.
His story's
and the fact that
so
he died
sad,
with
dude.
nobody
Mojo
says more about
Jojo's
his
story
kind.
is so
The strong
sad.
mom
I just don't want to forget. I don't want to forgore.
weak. Orangutans as a whole are a victim. There are more to them than for them, in worse ways than you think. I can't even say what this one went through. Just know her name is Pony and her story is not for the weak. Orangutans as a whole are a victim of humanity, and the worst part is what happens when they're gone. Once all the orangs in an area are gone, all the generational knowledge of how to live there dies with them. It's not just a species, it's an entire culture that goes extinct with no way of bringing it back. So what can you on your phone, computer, or TV do? One is obviously support an organization that helps with research and rehabilitation, which is why I'll be donating to Orangutan Foundation International, founded by Galdeques herself. Link down below if you'd like to as well. Also, never support a place that uses orangutans as tourist traps. Any place that lets you pay to play with an orangutan is a huge red flag. But probably the best way is to avoid palm oil. Palm oil is the leading cause of their extinction, and it's in 50% of household products in the West. It's a commitment, but it's looking like we either give up the oil or negotiate the red ape's existence. The choice is yours. Just know the orangutans would
Isn't
probably
like
do the
palm
same
oil
for
not
us.
even that
But yeah,
great?
that's gonna do
Aren't
it for
there
this
like
video.
some pretty
But
good
first, I wanna
alternatives?
thank y'all.
Like
If you
almost
remember my
everything?
Elephant Sanctuary video, then you know that the park actually
No,
flooded
not
a
the
month after I
fox
visited.
mask.
A flood that cost 2 rescued elephants their lives. But you guys came through with the donations, and Miss Leck Chyler was so grateful, they actually made a cake with my name.
This
and
guy's
gave
so
it to the
fucking
elephants.
cool.
And seeing my
What a
favorite
humble,
animals
cool
eating out
dude.
of my namesake cake would have been impossible without you guys. So thank you all. Hopefully one day I can do the same for Camp Leaky. But until then, drink water, hug your mother. If an orangutan hits you, apologize, because you deserved it. And I'ma see y'all.
We're gonna play a horror after
Hi, this is
this.
Simon Canvish and welcome to another marvellous video. One of the most popular cartoons in the late 90s.
Some
and
incredible
early 2000s
villains. The
has
character
been
designs and
Powerpuff
shit were
Girls,
unreal.
a raging success among boys and girls alike.
Him?
Blossom, Bubbles and Buttercup.
The freaking hot
won
teacher?
several hearts. And they
Or that
continue
hot
to
lady
do
with
so.
the red hair and you
However,
never
they
see her
are not
face,
the
but her
only
body's like-
heavyweight popular characters from their
like even
show.
as a kid,
The main
you're like-
antagonist of the show, Mojo Jojo, is one of the most interesting characters in the animated series. The desires of this
Miss Balloon?
anthropomorphic chimpanzee are simple. He wishes to defeat the Powerpuff Girls and subsequently rule over the world. He even attains his goals in some episodes, albeit temporarily. In this video, we will go over how Mojo Jojo became a supervillain and what makes him so competent over other villains across Powerpuff Girls, as well as other cartoons. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
Wait,
Ingredients chosen to create the
Matlock, is that real? Can you send that?
Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient.
Mojo Jojo's tragic origin. Right off the bat, it is more than evident that Mojo Jojo is a cunning, ambitious, and evil mastermind. He is consistently trying to take over the fictional town of Townsville and eventually the world. However, his attempts are almost always hindered and thwarted by the Powerpuff
There's some
Girls.
really good
Being as
freaking Mojo
ambitious as he
Jojo
is,
cosplays
Mojo
out
Jojo
there, though.
is not the type to
Fuck.
back down from a fight.
I love
no matter
cosplaying,
how
it's so
severe
cool.
the obstacles, and is adamant
I
about
want
attaining his
3 men
goal
in my
of ruling
life
the world.
to
However,
dress
Mojo Jojo never
as the
started his journey
escaped
as a
prisoners
genius.
that dress like the
He was a
Powerpuff
simple
Girls.
chimpanzee and a pet to Professor Utonium, the creator of the Powerpuff
Professor
Girls. We got a
Plutonium!
glimpse into Mojo's origin in the episode Mr. Mojo's Rising. The episode began with a casual day in the life of the Powerpuff Girls, where they, yet again, found themselves in a complicated situation created by Mojo Jojo. The evil chimp had kidnapped the
Oh,
professor
Mojo Jojo,
and
your
taken him
job.
to his lair. On reaching the site, the Powerpuff Girls surprisingly overheard Mojo referring to the professor as father. Soon after,
Oh my
it
God,
was
I'm gonna
revealed
do a
that
poll.
Mojo Jojo originally used to be Jojo, an ordinary chimpanzee and pet to the professor. Before the Powerpuff Girls were created, Jojo used the professor's lab assistant. He was super proactive around the lab, but he was loved by the professor nonetheless. The professor had the desire to manually engineer little girls in his lab, successfully creating perfect humans. That's how he ended up creating the Powerpuff Girls. However, the experiment had a fallout that affected Jojo. His brain mutilated to enlarge, both in size
Alright.
and intelligence, creating a
You guys
chimpanzee
get
with a
5
gigantic
minutes.
head.
Wait, how
and
much
an
is in
IQ
this?
level
Oh
way
yeah.
higher
You guys get
than
5
that of
minutes
humans.
to let me
The concept
know
for this was
which
inspired
Powerpuff
by
Girl
the
you
planet of
are.
the apes,
I want to
where
know.
apes attained
There's a
higher
poll up. I
intelligence
want to
than
know
humans
what our
and
chat
eventually
consists of.
overthrew civilization.
How many blossoms, how
Mojo
many
Jojo's
bubbles, and how many
character
buttercups we
mirrored
got
the
up in
ape
this
known
bitch.
as Caesar. With his super intelligence, Jojo showed off impressive feats, which only paled in comparison to that of the Powerpuff Girls and their superpowers.
This will
With
be on
higher
the
consciousness
test,
about
Frank. It
himself,
will.
his feelings, and his surroundings,
Mojo
followed by the
Jojo.
chain of events in his relationship with the professor, Jojo began to experience new emotions such as fear and the feeling of being inferior. Plagued by his new problems and isolation, Jojo was finally done with his life as a pet chimp and decided to take down the one thing that seemingly destroyed his life, the Powerpuff
Dude,
Girls.
I actually have so
Jojo
much
turned
empathy
into
for
the
him.
supervillain we now know as Mojo Jojo and dedicated himself to his aforementioned goals. When he shared this story with the others, the professor denied remembering
Mojo.
much before the birth of the girls. However, to fix his relationship with Mojo Jojo, the professor decided to give him
Mojo,
superpowers
Wait.
as well. With his newfound superpowers, Mojo naturally betrayed the professor and went against the Powerpuff Girls. With both brains and brawns at his disposal, he outdid everyone and dispatched the Powerpuff Girls, thus removing the only obstacle between himself and world domination. He even got rid of his lab and weapons
Squeezing his
because he
fucking
simply
face is
did not need them
crazy.
anymore. He had powers, so he did not need to tinker.
Hi, Ed.
Later, the professor finally remembered his pet chimp Jojo, but revealed that the chimp was nothing but a nuisance. He was a terrible lab assistant, destroyed everything, and was in fact kicked out on the day the Powerpuff Girls were born. Ultimately, the professor revealed one particular fact that took a huge toll on Mojo's sanity. While the professor made the concoction to create the girls, he was pushed by Jojo. This resulted in the professor accidentally hitting a container with the mysterious chemical X in it, causing the content
Your buttercup.
to give the
Look at
girls
how
their
many buttercups
superpowers.
and not
This
one
meant that
blossom
Mojo
in
Jojo
here.
had a huge hand in creating the
We have no
Powerpuff
type A's in
Girls
here?
in their current forms. Distraught by the fact he created the very thing that he despises, Mojo Jojo was left shocked. This acted as a distraction, and then the Powerpuff Girls used this to their advantage and had his powers removed, taking him down once again.
His Japanese
The thing
accent,
is,
that's a good
Mojo
point.
did not become evil overnight. After he was made to leave the professor's side while dealing with his overgrown brain, Mojo used a paper bag to cover his brain, and settled in an alley. Naturally, he was extremely alone.
Like
and
what?
lonely
Okay,
there, with no one to
irresponsible.
be with
No,
him.
I'm sorry. Irresponsible. Professor X, you don't just let a wild, brain damaged with who knows what monkey that used to be your son just out in the alley? That's what you do. You just let him go live in an alley and then hope that everything works out. No. That's your fault. It's his fault. I'm sorry. Sometimes people decide, I'm going to have a child, and then the child's a demon. You chose to have that child. Now you have a demon child. You got to figure that shit out, okay? Figure that shit out. You don't go put the child in an alleyway and hope that it turns out all right and doesn't want to destroy the world.
Or care for him. This continued isolation and neglect turned him emotionless, which fueled his desire to destroy Townsville. He
I'm
had
not
stopped
listening to you
caring
right now,
about
Koshi.
what
I
was
just
right
can't.
And what was wrong. So the journey to dominate the world seemed like a feasible one to get into. However, this did not mean that Mojo Jojo was essentially always evil. He was a regular civilian from time to time, reading his newspaper.
Imagine
across the
asking a
streets,
monkey
buying things with
to
money
act like a
instead of stealing,
civilized
and
human
having
being.
a decent relationship with the average person. In fact, even the Powerpuff Girls occasionally went to him for favors, without the fear of being attacked or without the intention of attacking. In the episode Moral
Your
Decay,
parents shouldn't have done that to
Buttercup
you
was
guys. I'm
more
so
than an
sorry.
antagonist
That
than
explains
Mojo
why you're
himself.
here.
She accidentally broke Bubbles' teeth and then witnessed her get $1 overnight. This promoted her to collect teeth and to get dollars for each tooth from the Tooth Fairy. Naturally, she started off by trying to get more of Bubbles' teeth. When that did not work out, she began to hunt the enemies of the Powerpuff Girls down. She reached every site of the action and knocked out the teeth of her opponents, using them to get $1 from the Tooth Fairy. After she was done going against the lesser villains, she shot for the stars as she went after the heavyweight supervillains such as him, Fuzzy Lumpkins, and of course, Mojo Jojo.
Yeah, dude, they had some
Buttercup
awesome
managed to
character
break into
designs
their
in
homes
this.
and knock their teeth out.
The character,
Later,
yeah, so
Blossoms
cool,
and
so
Bubbles learned of
original.
the story from Mojo Jojo himself,
So
making
fun.
it evident that the villain was more than willing to have a sane conversation with the girls, while the girls believed his words. In the end,
Oh my
Buttercup's
gosh.
plans are thwarted.
Oh,
by
we
the
did. We
girls
got three
with a
bo-
little
we got
help
three
from Mojo
blossoms?
Jojo, making for an interesting
I love
scenario.
that.
Back to
I
Mojo.
love
What
that.
really affects him throughout
And like
all
8
of his problems
buttercups. I was
is
a
his
buttercup.
dejection towards himself. He often refers
Chemical
to himself as a monkey
X.
inside of a chimp to taunt himself. Other monkeys do not like him either. But there was a point when he dated a monkey called Mojo Jojo. There's more to this story, of course. In the episode
I just
want
wanna see him happy.
we got to meet the supervillain group comprising Mojo Jojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins, Princess Morbucks, and him. The name is a parody of the Beatles. and the
Right,
episode makes
Nisbeth?
several
We're having a
references to the group as
flashback
well.
right now.
The most notable one being the villains being pictured on the road in the
Okay. Did they leave Batman in a back alley, or were they murdered in a back alley?
similar to the Abbey Road album cover. The
That is
supervillains of
irresponsible
Townsville
parenting.
joined
You're right,
forces after being
Kabuki.
defeated by the Powerpuff Girls repeatedly. This time, their combined efforts helped them defeat the girls,
And he turned out
making
fine.
them realize that they are invincible together. And so, with this newfound glory, they band up to form the Beat Alls. In the upcoming fights, they end up reigning over the girls once again. And gradually this becomes
Like, dude, the girls
new
were
norm.
sleeping. They're in their
much so
pajamas. How does that
the
even
Powerpuff
count?
Girls are forced to give up on saving the day, at least until the professor points out that they need to start by making the group split apart. Kind of like how the Beatles were an unbeatable band in terms of popularity, sales, and success, until they split up. The Beatles broke up for several reasons, some more controversial than others. However,
Oh,
many have continued to
interesting.
believe that John Lennon's wife, Yoko Ono, played a part in Lennon leaving his group and pursuing music with his wife instead.
Wait, what are we
the
watching
Powerpuff
now?
Girls pull off a similar feat as they lure Mojo Jojo into meeting a white-clad chimp by the name Mojo Jojo, which clearly sounds similar to Yoko Ono.
What? I
Mojo
didn't
soon
even-
begins to bring
What?
Mojo everywhere with him, starts to dress similar to her, and partakes in odd performance crimes alongside her, which kind of mirrors Lennon and Yoko's relationship.
Dude, what the
Naturally,
hell?
This causes the Beatles to experience the same fate as the Beatles, and the supervillains break up. However, the other members continue with their antics.
I never, ever caught that.
Called to the rescue.
I don't think I could have, but like what?
Towards the side of the villains, they are ultimately defeated by the girls, making their plans a success. Later, the girls hunt down Mojo to apprehend him and reveal that Moko is a performing chimp named Michelle from the town zoo, and that she was used by the Powerpuff Girls to help stop the Beatles. Needless to say, the plan was super successful, and Mojo was sent to jail while he harbored a broken and devastated heart. Unfortunately for him, Moko never liked him and disliked him for giving monkeys and apes a bad name. In a separate episode called Get Back Jojo, Mojo went back in time to prevent
He
the
didn't
Powerpuff
deserve
Girls
all this,
from being
dude.
created, and she intended to destroy.
He was out there minding his own business, just being in love, dude. He wasn't being evil, he was being in love. And then they go and they hurt him more.
While the latter was a child. This plot was thwarted by the girls, but it became the catalyst behind the professor gaining an interest in science in the first place. This basically made Mojo the reason behind the creation of the Powerpuff Girls, putting him in a weird situation once again. But he is not at all that bad. He has saved the day just like the girls, albeit not with the intention of making the world a better place. For example, when an alien overlord tried to
Wait, that might not be
Earth
it.
and rule over humans, Mojo was left distraught
That's not it.
by having his dreams stolen by another supervillain. Stressed beyond measure, Mojo attacked the Overlord viciously and made him submit to him. In the end, the alien fled Earth in terror due to Mojo, making Mojo the reason why the Earth was
Dude,
saved.
there's a
He
deep
was
dive that
praised and
Emerson
hailed as a
found
hero
on
by the people of the
Adventure
town
Time that
and
it's like an
the
hour
Powerpuff
long
Girls.
though, or like
Even
a
though
few
he did not
hours.
like being seen in that light,
I
tried
really want to dig
retaining
into
his
that.
reputation as a menacing supervillain. Mojo Jojo was a good guy in the Powerpuff Girls rule. At this time, it was intentional. He had attained his lifelong dream of ruling over the world, but instead of becoming a tyrannical ruler like everyone expected him to be, Mojo turned out to be a kind ruler. He solved the problems of the world, such as world hunger, and used his intellect to cure all diseases. Everyone, including the girls, were shocked. However, he soon got bored of being the good guy and went back to his old ways, making the Powerpuff Girls intervene once again. Ultimately,
I was rooting for you,
apprehended and
dude.
sent to prison.
Fuck!
will be known as the Silver Beetles.
What was Mojo Jojo really like? Created after Dr. Gory from the Japanese series Spectre Man, a heavy Japanese influence is prevalent throughout Mojo's appearance and design. He was made to look more like a realistic chimp, at least realistic for cartoon standards. Throughout the first 4 seasons, however, his features gradually got more angular, changing his appearance. He had a personality you would expect a villain of his caliber to have. As someone with superhuman intelligence, he often spent his hours inventing new technology, creating weapons, and brainstorming ideas to take care of the Powerpuff Girls once and for all. He is the primary antagonist that the girls fight against, and easily their toughest rival. So much so that Mojo has defeated the girls numerous times, even though the girls are literally protected by the greatest defense of all time,
Love?
the plot armor. With his
plot
evil
armor.
mind, Mojo
Fuck,
can
things
be
have
very
changed,
cunning,
dude.
which he
It used
uses
to be that
exploit
love
the
conquered all,
weakness
but now
of
it's
the
plot
Powerpuff
armor.
Girls. He does not care for people's approval or rules, often acting as a loner who does not like to be around humans who will bother him whenever he's engrossed in his scheming and inventions. He does what he wants and is versatile enough to live as both a supervillain who keeps the Powerpuff Girls on their toes as a civilian who takes leisurely walks on the streets. In fact, he is hostile towards the girls only when they're acting as an obstacle. Other than that, way, Mojo can be stronger than the Powerpuff Girls. Not that he is not
Oh my
dangerous
god,
already,
WAP, wet
which
ass
brings
peanut
us to
butter.
our next
Oh.
segment.
To help them get big and strong for Mojo's deadly kitten army.
What makes Mojo Jojo to their homes
No!
and not beat alls?
You had a peanut butter massage before?
When injected with Chemical X, Mojo acquires superpowers such as being able to cause sound waves with his claps, breathing fire, and shooting hair spikes. In this form, he is invincible, and the only way to counter him requires his opponents to first strip Mojo.
Thank you. Wait,
of his
Expendable,
powers.
do you
With
know
his fury
Psycho
by his
B?
side, which only gets triggered once the villain
Thank you,
reaches
B.
his breaking point, he can defeat those who the girls cannot. And for this, he does not even need his weapons. Raw strength does the trick. Around this time,
Dude, they
he'd even
neglected
acquired the
him,
ability to
abused
fly.
him,
An interesting
alienated
ability that
him.
Mojo boasts has nothing to do with his villainous
They left
endeavors,
him.
but everything to do
For
with his
dead.
Japanese roots.
Oh,
Mojo
wait, what?
is a masterful chef when it comes to making sushi, and he showed off his abilities while babysitting the Powerpuff Girls. He even called himself the best chef in Townsville. However, the girls did not enjoy the food, and the reason remains ambiguous. Sushi does take some time to get used to if you're not born into the culture. And for most,
Nah, I
it's,
love sushi.
well, it's an acquired taste. Surely a whole new world opens up to you once you do acquire
Apocalypse
the taste, but
stick.
you would need a mature palate to start
Oh, that's
appreciating the
awesome, dude.
dish
Thank
in
you. Welcome
the
in.
first
Nice to
place.
meet you.
Naturally, it is not something you can expect 5-year-olds to enjoy.
But with my own bare hands.
Marvelous verdict. Clearly, Mojo Jojo is a cut above the rest regarding being a competent villain. Not only does he actually pose a threat and is not just there as comic relief, but he also has several layers to his personality. He's not your regular one-dimensional villain who is just a bad
I'm sorry, but
person
this show
with
would be nothing
evil
without him.
intentions. He
And
even
if-
seems
if-
to be the type you could be great friends with. At least as long as you don't cross him. And if you like
I just don't want to get
content,
too
well, don't
angry
forget
because
to
it's a
leave
cartoon,
like
but I'm
and
pissed,
subscribe
okay?
to us if you haven't already.
Because he was a baby monkey, okay? Look at that. That is a baby monkey, and it's doing baby monkey stuff, and he's like, that's it. Get out of my house, baby monkey. Leaves the baby monkey with brain damage. Okay, its skull, its brain fully cracked open, okay? Leaving it in the street and then wonders why it went evil. You bastard, you're irresponsible. I can't, I'm so upset. Hi, Ligma. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining in on Suss's raid. It's so irresponsible. He's like, oh, baby monkey, you were a pest. Oh, yeah, it's a baby fucking monkey. A baby human is a fucking pest. Nah, dude, they did him so dirty. How about maybe don't make 3 more children when you can barely get a grasp on your fucking monkey child. Oh my God. And now he's like evil, and then he gets abandoned, and all he just wants is love. He falls in love for like a hot minute, but it was all a lie. And they did it to hurt him.
with his wife instead. The Powerpuff Girls pull off a similar feat as they lure
And he
Mojo
was
Jojo
chillin'.
into meeting up.
He was minding his own business when he was in love, okay? He was just vibing, being in love. And
White-clad chimp by the name Moko Jono, which clearly sounds similar to Yoko Ono. Mojo soon begins to bring Moko
Dude.
everywhere with him.
nurture versus nature, okay? Oh my God, they did him so dirty. My poor dude. Pour one out for